is March 7th, and as you know, the Sankofa flight embarks a new passenger in this week dedicated to women in African history. A passenger who lived a very painful life that you probably saw in caricature, with an exaggerated birth staged, exhibited in Europe in a human zoo of the 19th century for the pleasure of spectators looking for exoticism. They look at her with disdain, touch her butt sometimes, insult her often, laugh at her again and again and again. And she's naked, or almost naked, winter or summer, forced to smile, to jiggle, without ever getting tired. Who is this woman? Yes, we are talking about a human being. Who was this woman who was, in spite of herself, responsible for a lot of cliches about the black women in the West? And what is the story of Sarah Bartman, nicknamed as the Hottentots Venus?
African History Daily by my daddy.
A Khoikhoi woman, she was born in the 1770s in Kandubu in today's South Africa. After her parents died, she moved to Cape Town, where she worked several years in slave-like conditions. William Dunlop, a Scotsman in Cape Town for business, sensed the opportunity to make money by showcasing Bartman's body in Europe. As she arrived in London in 1810, Sarah was forced to perform for the crowds in human zoos and so-called freak shows. For 2 shillings, Londoners could stare at her in Piccadilly Circus and poke her with fingers or sticks with a little extra money. She performed the image of a primitive African for a European audience, serving as illustration of a hyper-sexualized and savage other that allowed the European onlookers to reassure and buttress their sense of a normal and civilized self, whatever normal and civilized mean in this sentence. In 1814, after the death of Dunlop, Bartman moved to Paris and performed in the Palais Royal. Her income declined and her health worsened until her death in 1815. And here is Georges Cuvier, French naturalist and zoologist, advancing towards her corpse. Yes, I said zoologist. And yes, I also said to autopsy a human being, to perform an autopsy and a dissection which are not really intended to establish the causes of her death, but rather to dehumanize her as much as possible. As a consequence, with Sarah's body, which he placed as the missing link between men and apes. He then concluded in the end to the superiority of the white race. And neither Bartman's story nor her mistreatment end here. The Musée de l'Homme, or Human Being Museum, kept her brain and skeleton on display for over 150 years. It took the French government until 2002 to restitute her remainings back to her birth soil, where she was buried with a traditional ceremony. Another strong African women's poem, I've Come to Take You Home, by Diana Ferris, is believed to have paved the way for this. Sarah is today seen as a symbol of colonialist exploitation and scientific racism. However, she was also one of the many victims forcefully brought to Europe by colonists only to abused and stripped of her humanity. Remembering her as human and honoring her memory needs to go beyond casting her as a victim of history. Black feminist scholars have pointed toward her fundamental role in representation of a female black body in the West that still marks our societies in the 21st century. In her natal South Africa, her legacy lives on stronger than ever. In 2018, the University of Cape Town's Memorial Hall was renamed from colonist Leander Starr Jameson to Sarah Bartman's Hall, creating, in the words of the university, a place for restoration, healing, growth, and compassion. My African cliché of the day is a duty of memory. Remembering and honoring one's memory must go beyond a simple victimization of history. Do you want to know how a current Ugandan government minister is paying tribute to her memory? To her memory as a woman, as a human being, as an African? Well, This minister had the wonderful idea of proposing that the Ugandan woman's butt be now officially considered as a national touristic attraction, sitting nicely alongside the 5 main zoological attractions: the lion, the rhino, the leopard, elephant, and the buffalo. We are no longer in colonial times. We are not friends with zoologist French Cuvier. We are in 2019 and 200 years after Sarah's sufferings. And yet a similar amalgam is made. And this minister is moving forward with it. Tell me, can any Ugandan woman complain about being treated tomorrow like a piece of meat? I let you think about that, to your own African cliches, to our African continent, and hope you will tune in tomorrow for the last trip of the week in the Sankofa flight. Thank you.